what I think the podcast
Sure.
is going to be.
Right.
And although I was very wrong about what Will I Know Anyone at this party, I don't think I was necessarily that far off base on the podcast as a whole.
Sure. And, I don't remember what you said, so it's possible.
I think you said, at least about This American Life, I could totally be wrong here, that it's about kind of one man's perspective on his life, right?
Yeah, just kind of a
okay.
social narrative.
Not too
I
far
think.
off.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this would be a good time to break and actually go to Ira Glass regarding what he says This American Life is about.
Okay, the idea of this show, this new little show, is stories. Some by journalists and documentary producers like myself. Some just regular people telling their own little stories. Some by artists and writers and performers of all different kinds.
All right, so we have it. I mean, it's a pretty general idea. We take a topic and we give you multiple perspectives on that topic, which was, I think, really the Notes on Camp was perfectly representative of that.
Very much so.
Pre-produced segments, folks calling in with their experience at camp.
Right.
So it perfectly fit that. Okay, so, you weren't that far off. I mean, it is about Americans talking about their life. This is the American experience of fill in the blank.
Right. Did you have a hard time finding these episodes?
In a way, yes, because they weren't on my the apps that I currently use.
Yeah, some of
on
them are so
Spreaker
old
or
that,
Stitcher.
that they
They
don't
were
just populate.
some of them were, but not the episodes that you had assigned me. So even though there were episodes in the 500 range,
Right.
number 600 wasn't.
Right.
And
Where'd you
number
find them?
109 was not. Ultimately, I ended up finding them on the website for the podcast.
Yeah, I found that one of them was on Amazon streaming. And so you can actually buy episodes on Amazon is basically, it's like singles.
Yeah.
But one of the things is
Why
that
would
because
somebody do that?
you know what? Because people really like the episodes and they want to buy them. Because
Hey, they're dedicated webs like thisamericanlife.org. It's like listen now or download for $5.99 or
Right.
something insane like that.
I think that they do want to sell the episodes. They a lot of these. I think podcasts are something that's going to change into either subscription-based model. Because I don't know if you know what Patreon is.
I mean, it's like a hosting thing, right?
Right.
Brandon, don't explain Patreon.
Well, no, I
to
think
Doug.
that's
in
what-
case we ever have it. I don't want to cut Doug in on his third.
Sorry. But I think
Hey,
that's
Doug,
what, I
Doug
think that's what
Patreon,
Ralph
it's not
Goulet-
available anymore.
I believe
But-
that's what Ralph Garman's podcast is.
Oh, okay.
Doug's
It's a
got
way
some-
for average folks to kind of patronize, to be a patron to
It's
something like
sort of
that.
the idea of getting paid if you're making art.
Why aren't we on there?
Podcast because nobody's going to pay us, Doug.
Well, that'd be the reason. Thanks, Brandon. You were eloquent in your brevity because there is no one who would pay. We could have Patreon. We just wouldn't make any
exactly.
money.
Yeah, maybe our moms would be nice.
We could
and
put a huge
throw some
copper
money.
bucket in front of my house that says, please throw
Yeah.
money here. But no one's going to do
We
it.
could be like buskers who don't perform well.
Right.
But so
Oh my God,
anyway,
can you imagine someone busking a podcast?
that'd be amazing.
Wait,
dude,
we just convinced Brandon to perform a podcast for $20.
That's true.
That's 'cause I'm-
may
That's his
work.
busking, isn't it?
Doug, you know what? You have
I
just
told you, it's a whole new
turned
year.
that criticism
It's a
on its
whole
head.
new
It
year.
really is. The student has become the teacher, Brandon, in 2019.
pod. So I think that
Yes.
one of the things that's interesting about This American Life, and I think that it's a good example, is that I think it probably gets a lot more listens because it's a podcast than it ever did as a radio show.
I think you're probably
And
right.
I think that podcasts in general, as we move forward in time, I think they're going to move away from radio, a lot of them, and be a lot more on the pod-sphere, the podiverse, and abandon. I think This American Life is a good example of places where it's finding a lot of different ways to monetize itself that isn't
Right.
necessarily just on the radio.
And more power to him. And
Yeah,
thank you
that's
for
the American
leading the
way.
way.
Capitalism, guys. Capitalism. Apparently, I can't speak, but you know what? That happens.
But
Anyway.
I knew what you meant, Brandon.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've known you for a long time.
Yeah, my gobbledygook.
When you're
still makes
just
sense.
gibbering away nonsensically,
Like
I
a
can
monkey.
figure it out. All right, so a little bit of a challenge this week, but you did listen to both episodes
I
in their
absolutely
entirety.
did.
Hooray.
In their entirety.
Now, I have to ask, when you listen at work to something like this, which is kind of information dense, although there are, obviously deadly serious episodes, and there's some really lighthearted ones, and we got a little bit of both, maybe not real deadly serious. Well, in October of 2016, they may not have realized just how serious that discussion of how the Republican Party was changing, we'll get to that, was. But, that's the interesting thing about something kind of caught in amber that we get to then go and look back at it and go, well, this is what we thought.
How
this is
prescient
where
were
we
they?
were, right? How prescient, how wrong, how right, exactly. So, which did you listen to first? Did you go in chronological order, which would have been Notes on Camp first?
Right. No, this is actually, I guess, the first time I have gone out of chronological
inverted it?
Okay, so you started with Will I Know Anyone at This Party?
Yes.
Which is, as I kind of just suggested, an episode about how in late 2016, right on the eve of the, at our time, last presidential election, so the November 2016 presidential election in which Donald Trump was elected via the electorate, at least, by a majority of electorate, the president, or electoral college, I should say. It was really about how at that time, obviously before they knew he was going to have an ultimately successful campaign, at least successful in the most significant way a presidential campaign can be successful, that the Republican Party had fundamentally changed, that it looked different maybe than it had at any other time in the previous 50 or 60 years. What did you think of the episode? What did you think of the overall structure of the show, the extent to which Ira Glass is or is not there, and just about the show itself?
Yeah, so I think, it was a little heavy as far as really having to tune in. So at one point, I was listening and I realized that I probably wasn't listening well enough. So I actually restarted the episode and started over and just wanted, because I did want to, give it my full attention as much as I can, as much while working. It's that episode in particular, wasn't thrilling to me. I thought it was actually very interesting to get that, that perspective of pre-election results and what was going on. There were definitely parts of it that I thought were so randomly weird and not necessarily enjoyable. Although Neil Patrick Harris, I love him.
So you're
explain
referring to the two musical numbers.
Right.
They had a couple very currently well-known songwriting, particularly for musical theater duos, like Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez, write songs, because as Ira Glass, when you're Ira Glass, even in 2016, a couple years ago, when the show had already been on the air for damn near 2 decades, he's the kind of guy that can say, and so we wondered what it would be like if there was a musical about, and people just go, okay, we're doing it for Ira Glass. He wants to know what a song about Paul Ryan potentially losing his party would sound like.
Why don't we play it?
Well, we're certainly going to play a clip of it right here so you get a feel for it.
I know he's fun and all. Maybe I'm no fun, but it's because I truly care. It's only for your sake that I endorsed. I'm sure you could tell it was completely forced.
So I agree, this was a little weird. I'm not a fan of musical theater, and this had the kind of winking at you political satire lyrics of like the Capitol Steps, and I can't stand that shit. But these are, of course, really currently beloved songwriters. They wrote the music for Frozen. Right?
Frozen, correct,
right?
amongst other things. But the other thing is that This American Life does tend to incorporate the arts in a lot of different ways.
Sure.
And this felt pretty on brand for me.
Totally. Like I said, Ira Glass can say, and we wondered what that would sound like.
Right.
And then you've got fucking huge stars coming out and doing it.
Because they incorporate fiction as well, is one of the things that they like to do. They have people who write pieces of fiction and then have celebrities read them, or do like little stage plays and stuff like that.
Well,
with
I
famous
think,
people.
when the song started, I think that's when I realized, I'm like, wait, am I actually paying attention? Because now there's a song going on, and that's when I thought, okay, there must be something more. And I actually, at that point, I think I immediately wrote down, wait, is this a real interview? And is this or am I missing the point?
Interesting.
So I went back and started it over.
Okay.
And thought, okay, so it is. They've just thrown in this,
Yeah.
quirky little musical.
And again, we're getting a perspective from someone, Doug, who's like, I don't know anything about This American
Right.
Life. You and I are like, oh yeah, they do stuff like this.
Right.
Doug's going, wait, what have I gotten? Like, what is this? What am I supposed to think of this?
And I like that Doug has sort of a bullshit sensor. It's like, is this thing just a gag? Is this something where...
Right.
Because that's one of the things that does happen to me with This American Life and a couple other podcasts where I have the... I I don't know what I've read on the page syndrome, where sometimes you just kind of gloss over, or everything sounds
You
so...
have to reread the paragraph.
Exactly.
So to
You,
speak.
just, you realize you've been reading for 2 pages and not taking in any information.
Sure.
And sometimes it happens with This American Life, where you have to go back and go like, what is the point of what they're playing for me?
Well, and there was that point, I think it was after the song, where there was a female reporter. I don't remember her name.
Right.
But she was telling the story about being at a party I think it was a barbecue or something. And I kept, especially at that point, I'm like, well, is this a reenactment or is this an actual interview? And they've just
Interesting.
They
Okay.
made it so glossy that it was, almost soap opera.
Sure. And all of it, I mean, because it is journalistic in its intent and its practice, in that they do go out and get natural field recordings of whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely started as a an arm of journalistic intent, wherein they hire a bunch of people to go out and just talk to people in America,
Yeah. Right.
just kind of This American Life.
But Doug is right, because immediately preceding that was a satire song.
Right.
Where, it's this, I wonder what Paul Ryan is thinking currently about his position in the party, and that it's kind of abandoning him, but almost this torch song that I'll be there for you when you need me, and so forth. Then it's followed by, like he said, a relatively well-produced field recording of individuals in the Republican Party who were tailgating outside like the National Convention, and he's thinking, wait a minute, is this a recreation? Again, you and I are like, oh, this is now a segment of a reporter out in the field,
Right.
and it makes sense to us. We're learning that this was somewhat confusing for a neophyte
Yeah,
in the show.
It truly, I was like, is this Foley artist in the background? What's going on?
Oh,
'Cause it
interesting. That's
it
great.
was
I like that.
It was just so, I don't know, the sound quality to it
Right.
was so clean and clear
Right.
that it almost sounded like somebody's added in a layer of background noise.
Right. And actually, I don't know if they do or don't. It's maybe something wherein they sweeten it by going, oh, I've got this recording. One of the things that was happening at the party was these noises were happening. Let's pump in some to give it a better sense, a greater sense of production. I don't know. I don't know if there's any way to check that.
We can
Other
ask-
than
let's ask
right.
Ira.
Although those segments, I agree, are supposed to be straight out journalistic.
Yeah.
Although it may be entertaining to us, it's interesting, but good journalism should be interesting.
Right.
I'd feel that if we found out that they actually sweetened it up by adding tailgate sounds in the background, that would feel as that would be kind of a dangerous thing for them to do.
make you
I
question
think it
all the
might
rest of the
tarnish
content.
their validity, their journalistic integrity. Yeah. But you're right, Doug. It did. I thought the same thing. But I'm used to it. Their production
Right.
quality is really high. So.
It doesn't make me get
She,
a second
by the way, may
think.
have had like a team with her who had 5 mics. And
Yeah,
they were
exactly.
An
Who
ambient
knows?
mic up and direct
there's-
mics for each of the people.
I guarantee that there's a whole team that's being sent out, because like one of the things that you don't know, but I listen to Serial, and Serial is an offshoot of This American Life, and the newest season is a lady who embedded herself at a Cleveland courthouse for 1 year. They were able to pay for this lady to just live in Cleveland with her team and just talk to people for a whole year. So it was a year in the making, this whole 9 or 10 episode season 3 of this show called Serial.
Right.
So obviously This American Life has a big enough budget where they can afford
Sure.
to send people out and just embed them.
You've just, I think, highlighted the reason, right? Big budget. First season of Serial was so successful. Okay. Hypothetical. Our show gets so successful that
Yes.
second or third season, we basically can embed Doug wherever we... You and I are going to relax and live our normal
course.
lives. But we will forcibly embed Doug somewhere. Where would you want to embed Doug?
Ooh.
Think about it. And Doug's got to live, let's not go crazy, 6 months wherever you embed him, or with whomever you embed
I
him.
kind of want to. Part of me, the first thought, this is hot off the presses,
Right.
New Zealand, with the
Okay.
boners of the heart and the walkout guys,
Right.
and just make him hang
just
out
the
with
whole
them
little
for
Empire team.
Yes, I just want
Okay.
to put him on a small island in the middle of the Pacific,
Yeah.
and make him live a wild adventure with some wacky comedians. John,
I'd be okay
I
with
like
that.
it.
I'd be okay with
I
that.
think you'd be okay with it. Now, I don't know how you'd feel about the next one. Very possibly, you might be like, that would be awesome. But again, all my choices aren't to torture you. It just seems that way with the
Not
show.
all of them.
100% 6 months with Cirque du Soleil.
oh wow,
And I mean,
oh,
Doug
I thought we were
gets to
doing
report-
podcast related. I thought we were picking a podcast that we know of.
Embedding him with podcast.
Yes,
no, I meant
that's what
embedding.
you
So
meant.
I'm going to throw the question again.
Oh.
You can embed Doug anywhere.
I want him.
It can be at a refugee holding camp in Syria.
And Syria, of course, crosses my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I'd want him to do is have to go to the Philippines and be an Elvis impersonator in the Philippines.